A very good afternoon to you. Asian markets ended up mixed after a positive start of the session, with the Nikkei hitting a record high, with most eyes focused on the US Fed and what is set to decide on interest rates tomorrow. The Nikkei share average rose by 0.3%. The Hang Seng Index lost 0.03%, while the Shanghai Composite Index also closed flattish, up 0.04%. US markets opened and ended Monday's session in positive territory, with the tech-heavy Nasdaq registering further gains on last week, recording yet another fresh high. After having gained over 7% in value last Friday, the Tesla stock rose a further 3.7% yesterday on news that Elon Musk had made a $1 billion purchase of Tesla shares, raising further confidence in the stock. Meanwhile, investors are keenly focused on the US Fed's call on interest rates this Wednesday, with the expectation of a 25 basis point cut at least, with some betting that it could be more than that. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose by 0.11%. The S&P 500 gained 0.5%, while the Nasdaq continued its upward surge, closing up 0.94% at 22,348 index points. Looking at local indicators, we see that the all-share index is up 0.4% at 105,127 index points. The rand is trading at 17.36 against the US dollar, 20.50 vis-a-vis the euro, and 23.67 against the British pound. Looking at commodities, we see that gold is trading at $3,695 an ounce, platinum at $1,404 an ounce, while Brent crude oil is trading at $67.28 a barrel. All right, let's get into conversation now with Michael Traherne. He's a portfolio manager at Vestact. Thanks very much, Michael, for joining us. So it's widely anticipated that we'll see a rate cut out of the US Fed this week, but I suppose the Fed chair's forward guidance will also be closely watched in terms of what the attitude is going to be towards assessing whether they continue to move on rates, in terms of whether they focus on inflation levels or employment levels.
Yeah, afternoon, Nompu. Tomorrow, more than likely, or I'd say almost certainly, a rate cut. The big question is it 25 basis points or is it 50 basis points? Most likely 25, but due to a lot of political pressure coming through at the moment, 50 basis points is not off the table. And then, as you mentioned, forward guidance is going to be very important. What does the Fed guide towards? This rate cut's been very contentious. There's also new members of the Fed panel that are more pro-Trump than the previous members, so that will sway influence. And then the big question from the markets is it 2 cuts or 3 cuts this year? And that will drive exchange rates, markets, and just the general financial community.
So it's obviously the decision tomorrow comes one day before the SARB makes a call. What is your expectation? Because we saw that inflation jumped, or the latest print jumped to 3.5%, which is still within the target range. And of course, one of the pressures coming through is food. And we know that our Reserve Bank tends to be a bit more hawkish. Do you expect them to hold or cut?
Yeah, my money's on a hold tomorrow. I think at the last meeting there was a cut. There's still a bit of uncertainty around the target that you mentioned. The Reserve Bank saying that their preferred target is 3%, which I strongly agree with. But there seems to be a slight disconnect between them and Treasury, and we're waiting for a statement between those two parties to make an official statement. But recent surveys by the Reserve Bank has confirmed that the broader market is now anchoring at that lower 3% mark. I think that's good news for consumers, investors, anyone involved in our economy. Lower inflation is better, and that's where we should be targeting. But I do think tomorrow's or Thursday's MPC meeting is a hold.
Yeah. So I know you guys at Vestact, your sort of investment philosophy, it tends to be very focused offshore. We know that, you know, the AI tech sector has been really having a good run. But a few weeks ago, there were concerns, or people were not sure about the profitability of the AI tech sector. What's your sentiment around this? I mean, I know you're invested in this area, but do you sometimes have the shakes as you wonder about the longevity of this sector?
Yeah, I mean, this is the next industrial revolution, so to speak. I would compare AI to the invention of the internet and how prolific that's been with our lives. In terms of AI and AI stocks, there's two parts to it. The one is the companies actually selling the AI and how much money they're going to make. And then on the other side, it's how much money companies can save by implementing AI technology. And we're still at the infancy of this. Companies are still figuring out what the best ways to implement these solutions. And because of the hundreds of billions needed to run these AI models, this is going to be like maybe 5 companies globally that can really compete. And as a result, those companies are going to have higher valuations just because of their ability to compete at that scale.
Yeah. A very quick one, Michael. We heard yesterday that the US and China they've reached an in-principle framework agreement around TikTok. Does this mean that China is going to give away TikTok to the US, which has been a very successful platform?
Yeah, so the finer details of that plan haven't been announced yet. We expect to hear on Friday what the exact plans are. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chinese entity gives up effective control but still keeps some sort of stake in the entity. And then the interesting part will be who in the US will be buying TikTok. Will it be someone who's politically connected to the White House and who stands to make a lot of money? So let's see. Obviously, TikTok is a very influential social media app. So it is a negotiation that needs to be handled sensitively from the White House's perspective, because it's a whole category of voters that you potentially alienate if you do this deal badly.
Yeah, no, very interesting thoughts there. Thank you so much, Michael, for your time and insights. That was Michael Chahern. He's a portfolio manager at Vestact.